Hi, Quinn. I don't know if I was supposed to hear before, but I didn't hear anything you said up until now. Is it going out live? I am looking at my. It looks like I should be able to hear you, but I don't. Do you hear me? You do hear me. Okay. Why don't I hear you? This is. I heard you just perfect until you went off to make your intro, and I saw you making your intro, but didn't hear a thing you said. It looks like my speakers are working. They made noise when I turned them up. It's going to be a rather one-sided conversation.
Oh,
There we
oh,
go.
do
Whoa,
you
you're
hear me
loud.
now?
Yes, I hear you now.
Okay, everyone. I'm sorry about that. That was totally my fault. Welcome to WRGOA. Here I got Scott Janney. If you want to support my work, get yourselves a Human Lives Matter t-shirt because if you're left, right, black, brown, or white, it doesn't matter. If you're a human being, and we should all behave as human beings, even though we disagree on things. So, my first. So, Scott, what
Yes.
made you. My first question to you has to be what made you want to run for state senate?
Quinn, thanks for asking that question. Um, I'm the kind of guy that it just kind of irks me when I hear people complain it ought to be different, it ought to be different, and they have the ability to do something about it. Some people complain, there's nothing they can do about it. And I found myself complaining about, especially under Joe Biden, especially in 22, 23, and 24 as he became less and less capable. And the news was saying, he's as bright as a tack. And many things were going on that I didn't believe were helpful. The economy was going downhill. Inflation was going wild. I have a 21-year-old son now. He was, graduating from high school, going to community college, getting ready to get into a job. And I thought, the world isn't a very good world for him. It was much better when I graduated from college and wanted to get a job. And so I don't like hearing people do say that and not doing anything. I voted 4 years ago. I became an committeeman and an area chair, so I was involved. But I knew there were other things that were needed, and I felt that the Lehigh Valley, that our Republican Party and conservatives in general were just not playing hard enough on all the fields we need to be playing. So I approached the county chairman of the Republican Party in Northampton County and said, we need to get somebody to run for some of these races. And he said, well, what about you? And I told him like 6 times, Glenn, you can find somebody better than me. And he kept on saying, no, you're the guy I think we ought to have run. And so it was my volunteering that something needed to be done and that somebody needed to do it turned into a, hey, Scott, why don't you do it yourself? And it's frankly the perfect time in my life. I'm much too old to ever become a career politician. That won't happen. And I'm also secure enough in my professional life that I'm not at all worried about something negative happening because somebody who associates me at work or associates with me in a professional life is going to be offended. I'm running as a conservative here in Pennsylvania. It's the time for me to do it.
And so what made you choose the Republican Party when we have so many others? I'm sure it's because I know the number one reason would be it's one of the two major parties, but why pick one of them?
Right. Well, honestly, the other parties, Conservative Party, for instance, for judge of election, for inspector of election, for township supervisor, there are people in the Conservative Party, there are people in the Working Families Party, which is kind of a misnomer, at those positions. But if you look at the Pennsylvania legislature and you look this entire millennium, and by the way, my opponent was in this office before the millennium started. But if you look at this entire millennium, there were like 2,500 races where people were elected to either the representatives in the state house or the state senate. 2,500 races. Do you know how many of them were something other than a Republican or a Democrat elected that way out of the 2,500 races?
Mm, this number should be interesting.
Yes. Well, it's less than 10, it's less
Wow.
than 5, and it's also less than 1.
Wow. So all the way down to zero.
All the way down
So,
to 0.
so you wanted a fighting chance is what you were saying.
Yep. It's and plus I do align with the Republican Party in the sense that, there are two parties in charge. Now a lot of people don't like that. And there are ways to speak out that are you're able to speak out in another party. But but at the end of the day, for national and state, and we've had a couple tries. Ross Perot, General Dynamics Ross Perot, a couple others have tried, but they've never had a big enough following that they had a real chance of being the candidate. And what they end up doing often is hurting the major parties closely aligned to them. So, it's not really a English Israeli parliamentarian type of government right now, and it never has been in our 249 years. So,
Soon to be 250.
right, yep.
And let's hope we can keep it going another 50.
Since the Declaration of Independence was first read in the United States in Easton, Pennsylvania, and also at two other cities of Trenton and Philadelphia. It was read first in Easton on July 8th, 1776, and at
Mm,
two other places.
well, so so if another party, if someone from a voter from another party, let's say a libertarian, came up with an idea that Republicans typically, don't, you know, didn't, look at, but came up to you with a good idea, would you consider that idea, even though you're running as a Republican?
I think one of my strongest supporters in the closest 10 to me. Uh, he's officially registered as a Republican, but everybody who knows him knows that he's a libertarian, knows that he looks at things as a libertarian. And I think if he could find a good libertarian candidate that he thought he had a shot, he might even leave the Republican Party to vote that way. So, and frankly, the major parties are losing influence right now. The big independent middle other group is growing. So basically Northampton County and a little less so Lehigh County. And the race I'm running for is mostly in Northampton County, but it just bleeds over into Lehigh County. The city of Bethlehem is what it has in Lehigh County. Anyway, so and I forget your question. So anyway, those middle, so it's 30% Northampton County Democrat, 30% Republican, it might be 29-31, and 40% independent and other. So the biggest party is neither of the other parties. To me, being a libertarian, being a conservative, being even working families makes sense to a certain degree because you have influence and greater influence in that smaller party than you have in one of the larger ones. But when it comes to the actual November race, you're probably going to accept in lower than state representative, and I think lower than county-wide too, probably. You're going to be supporting, choosing whether it's the Democrat or the Republican who gets your agenda further down the line. I think with Conservative Party, it's going to always be the Republican. I think with very few rare exceptions.
So if you were to get elected, what are some of the things that you plan on doing to help us have a better life?
Well, okay. Well, have a better life. The first thing came on my mind was the thing about fair elections because we don't trust. I don't trust our machines. I live in Northampton County. Live in Williams Township. In 2023, we were told by the county administration that it's the opposite of my last question. What percentage of the machines flip votes? And I'll do it the other way. It was more than 90. It was more than 95. It was more than 99. Every single machine in the county switched votes. It was for 3 judge elections where they said didn't matter because, our votes in a county, the difference was larger than that, but they did matter and they mattered everywhere. And it's my vote and your vote. So to make sure that, and I think it matters for us for going forward in our future, that every citizen gets to vote, that we know who they are. We don't have, like the house I live in, there are 5 registered voters in our house. There's my wife, my son, myself, and the 2 people we bought the house from in 2019. So, why do we have those bloated voter rolls? So that's a thing that I would do. You probably want other things that are more specific bread and butter issues, or do you want to talk a little bit more about voter ID and making sure our elections are secure?
I want to know every detail of how you're going to help improve our lives.
Okay,
It,
yeah, yeah.
because a lot of us are drowning out here, and it's not right to do that to the citizens.
Well, I'll tell you, like I've had some on my social media, which you can find at scottjanney.com. You have links to them. You can see I've done a lot of posts lately about the price of gas, which is a really good news thing because the price of gas has been going down over the last year since Donald Trump became president. That's a great thing. But when you look at I put on Facebook, and I have friends around the country who've also followed the political page, and they would say, hey, down here in Texas, you just said, yeah, it's $2.99. And I may have been in Upper Mount Bethel at the time. And they said, it's $1.99 here. It's $2.06 in, Ohio and stuff like that. And then I showed a map recently that in all but 8 states in the U.S., gas is under $2 a gallon.
And,
Average price of gas. And why
and
is
the high
one of
prices
those 8?
all in blue states.
Yeah, no, they're all blue. Although a lot of New York's gas averages under $2 a gallon. Why in the heck are our gas taxes higher than New York's? They've always been higher than New Jersey's, but still, why are they so much higher in this state? So
Maybe it has to do with Governor Shapiro getting a raise.
he's the highest paid governor. Yeah. Yeah. So, there are a lot of things we can do. And taxes, there's another tax that people don't think about, the business owners think about a lot. The regulations that the state and the county put on are kind of like they're hidden taxes. If you have to go through certain things like, well, you've heard when certain governments in the U.S. Played around with, like, you can't own a gas stove, or you can't have this kind of heating or this kind of fuel. And especially the war we've had, the prior 4 years against coal and against natural gas. It's like natural gas is so clean. What it produces is CO2. And there are people who try to label CO2 as a poison. But the way the world works is you breathe it out and breathe it in. So a lot of those regulations end up being as bad as taxes, and a lot of things related to the economy, which is not exactly taxes, but a lot of things like, having all the resources we do in Pennsylvania and saying we don't want to use them. Well, that's crazy because we should be exploiting the natural resources rather than exploiting the citizens.
Mm, amen to that. And then w- and speaking of taxes, we are being taxed to death on all levels of our government here
Yep.
in Pennsylvania, especially here in Allentown. And for some reason, people vote for it like it's a good thing
Yeah. Yeah.
here in Allentown. But as state senate, how would you fight to lower unnecessary taxes and also maybe even try and lower the governor's salary that because if he can give himself a higher salary, we can get a better tax relief.
Well, one thing I hope is that when I join the state senate, that the governor will be she. Because I would rather be working with Stacey Garrity than Josh Shapiro. I mean, Josh Shapiro was the hatchet man for Governor Wolf, who during the COVID did things like made sure that the little children had to wear masks, even though they had an extremely low chance of getting COVID in a serious way. They had to wear masks. They had to be taken out of school for 2 years, even though they should have been able to go back much sooner. He was the reason that Rachel Levin, or whatever you call Rachel Levin, took her mother out of the nursing home right before she closed down our access to our parents in nursing homes. So he was part of all that, and so I would really rather have Governor Stacey Garrity. So, but
Or,
but,
or
but
Bill Mesner.
right, okay. Who did you say?
Bill Mesner.
Okay,
He's running for the Constitution Party,
okay,
and Korshak, I can't pronounce his last name, but he's one on the Libertarian, and I
okay.
got to meet him a few years back.
Nice. Yeah, like I said, my thought is, you have state repping up. There hasn't been somebody who isn't a Republican or a Democrat at the final round crossing the finish line. So that's in this millennium. So of course this millennium is only 25 years old, but I didn't actually look up all the data behind that, but I asked my phone, and my phone said back to 1960 they had no record of anybody. It's a little harder to follow, because they don't have all the digital information input before that. I asked a couple of AI about that.
Yeah, well, I connected with all the all a lot of the third parties, so I'm able to. And my company is going to keep an eye on them and report
Yep.
on them because all the other news is going to do the two-party system. And I believe everyone needs to have a fair voice.
That's good. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I,
so
you know something I understand, Quinn? I understand what I don't think people understand how it works when they register as independent, because people, I ask, well, why are you independent? And they say, I don't like getting mail, texts, and phone calls. And they don't realize that if they're independent, they get all of our mail, text, and phone calls. Like the
yeah,
Democrats don't bother with me, but they bother with independents. The Republicans don't bother with Democrats, but they bother with independents. So registering is independent. I mean, at least if you're libertarian or conservative, they have you as an other. And probably the Democrats will stay away from sending too much stuff your way, unless there's a particular, especially libertarians, some issue where they consider Republicans, there's some things we like to legislate, and so a Democrat might try to approach a libertarian that, but generally the people who are registered independent get twice as much mail, twice as many texts, and they, in Pennsylvania at least, and I think it's the right rule. In Pennsylvania, you only your party actually has the influence in the primaries. So it's like, I mean, my son's actually registered Democrat. I, my thought is, I'm not going to say I don't know for sure, but he's pretty much a 50-50 vote splitter. I think the Republicans get a few more of them because he knows all the Republican candidates because I've been going door to door for them for a few years and they've mostly been by the house. But anyway, he wanted, when he turned 18, he was much more interested. He thought the Democrat primary for the big tickets was actually more in flux than the Republican, which was much more locked down. So that's why he became a Democrat. And that kind of makes sense if you want to get involved in one party's decision making or the other. But being an independent, there maybe are none who follow this podcast, so maybe I'm preaching to nobody. But to be an independent, you don't get the ability to make that decision, to make your mark, and you get everybody's mail and everybody's phone calls and everybody's text. So it seems to me like the worst of both worlds.
Oh yeah. So now most people are gonna want to know what we're gonna do about the you know in, about the ICE and the illegals issues. Now, with the Republican Party, rightfully so, wants to get the illegals kicked out and back into their own country. However, we want to do it in a way that doesn't violate the Constitution. Like if they're here and they're not breaking secondary laws, we shouldn't break the Fourth Amendment just to see if someone's an illegal or not.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, it's an issue, but at the same time, until they commit a secondary crime or we have a warrant because we have information on someone,
Mhm.
you know, because Long Island Audit recently was stopped at one of those border patrol stops in
Is that a person's
Texas.
name you said? I didn't quite hear that.
Long Island Audit.
Okay, all right.
And he was stopped at a border patrol. And what happened to him was they wanted him to identify himself, trying to violate his Fourth Amendment rights. And of course, being a constitutional activist, he said, "No, I'm not going to do it." And it's his right not to do it.
Mhm.
So what happened was they cuffed him, went to put him in jail, and they cut open his suitcase. And when they saw his shirt, they're like, they knew who he was because he's a very well known guy with 1 million followers. So
Wow, wow.
so how so so if ICE now when ICE are doing their jobs like
Mhm.
properly, I'm all for it. But
Mhm.
if they violate someone's rights in Pennsylvania, how are we going to deal with that?
Right. So it's interesting because this is kind of, it's opposite the way you'd look at it happening. So you said, of course Republicans want illegal aliens out of the country. And
Well, well,
but when
yeah,
I
yeah.
define 30% of the country's Republican, 30% is Democrat, 85% people want that. So that's maybe even half the Democrats, all the people in the middle and all the Republicans. So it's not a Republican issue. That's an 80-20 or 90-10 issue because we all want, and you look at Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, it's like Barack
Mhm.
Obama still has more deported illegal aliens than Donald Trump if you don't count the self-deporters. But what happens is when a state government, this is actually state and local related, when a state government says, we're not going, we have somebody arrested, we already got them for the secondary offense. We have them in jail, we have them in prison, but we're going to not let ICE come and get them. So ICE finds out that person left the prison. Let's put another state. Let's put in Cincinnati, Ohio. Although Cincinnati's not, let's put in Illinois, somewhere in Illinois. Dearborn, Illinois. They leave the prison. They go to a party or they go to a house where they're in among 20 other people. or maybe even just 5 other people, so there's 6 in the room, ICE busts in. First thing they have to do, and they have a constitutional right to do, is find that illegal who broke the law, and they're after. But while they're doing it, then they're in the neighborhood. If there's gunshots, it's gunshots that rip through a house or rip through an apartment. Everybody's in more danger, and the 4 or 5 or 6 or 20 other people that illegal alien person who broke that law and broke another law is with are all in danger, because suddenly they're associated with them. And I'm not exactly sure about where that would break the Fourth Amendment or where it doesn't. But those people in the room with them end up getting hauled off too, because as soon as ICE now knows for sure that they're here illegally, that's ICE's job. So the odd thing is, and it's one step further where I'm running. In Allentown and in Easton, which are where the 2 county courthouses are, the county commissioners, that's the level, there's federal, state, county, other local municipalities, the county executives, and they've just turned over, but neither of them's changed the policy, says that police officers, get this, must treat people differently. If you're arrested for something that you should go to prison for, and you're an American citizen, you go to prison and they'll accept you. If you happen to be an illegal alien and you do the same crime, you can't go, you must be released. So the counties require police to treat American citizens worse than illegal aliens, because they won't even accept illegal aliens in the prisons, because then ICE finds out about it and it's an issue. So they're not only not turning over people who are here illegally to the ICE, they're not even accepting them into the prison, because there's a danger they might have to send them over to
That
ICE.
sounds like a violation of the Fifth and 14th Amendment to
It
people's
certainly is.
life, liberty, and property.
They treat American citizens worse, because American citizens can go to our county prisons, but illegal aliens can't.
Yeah,
That's a Democrat policy, because I see it over 2 administrations in both the counties.
and you know what?
They don't
I
see
do
it.
believe we have the right, and so that means we have the right to defend ourselves from any and all attacks, regardless of who it is, according to the Constitution. Hence the Second Amendment
Right.
and Fifth and 14th Amendment, and if these policies from the Democrats are, you know, are so relaxed for the illegals, uh, then we need to make arrests, because that is part of a criminal empire, in my view.
Mm-hmm.
And many people are saying to the voters are saying, Republicans, make some arrests,
Right.
make arrests.
Well,
And so are there going to be any?
so I divide into, we asked the first question about why I'm doing this, and it's like, if I were 40, because I'm older than that, and I were in the middle of my career and I was worried about the next job, it might have been a harder decision for me to decide to put my name out there and run for state senate. And I wasn't asked then. I didn't actually volunteer then. So being older, when I'm close to retirement, and I have my the retirement fund set up, is why I do it now. So it's, for me, it's not an easy thing, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a reputational risk, because people who would naturally like me because they've worked with me before suddenly see Republican, they say MAGA, they say he's with the orange man, he's followers Adolf Hitler himself, all those things. So there are costs to it. But there are in life generally easy and hard things to do. I think the idea of going after somebody and arresting somebody because they're in here illegally is a very hard thing to do. And I think it's much easier to make sure you're registered and make sure a ballot gets to the ballot box, to change it to the people who agree with that. So on the one hand, voting isn't a guarantee your side will win. If there's not election integrity, it's certainly not a guarantee. But it's something that you can do. That's an easy thing to do. And even if mail-in voting is too easy, it's really easy for everybody, and both sides need to use it. So I have people who say we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do the other, but they're really hard things that they don't actually do. And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people who listen to you, Quinn, because
Oh
I
yeah,
know you
yeah.
vote, but and they don't take the trouble to, with a mail-in ballot in Northampton County and Lehigh County, you just have to go online and say, yeah, I want it. Then they send you an email, it's coming, and then you get it. Then you fill it in. You can put it. And Scott Presser and other people say, don't put it in the mail, but if you've got a 50% chance of not showing up on election day, your vote has like a 95, 99% chance of being counted exactly if you put it in. Nobody else can apply for a mail-in ballot in your name, because I know people have gone to the polls and said, I'm here to vote, and they say, no, you already voted by mail-in, and oh no, but we have you that way, so you have to vote provisional. So I know I went back to election integrity, but the thing is, people need to get the right people in office. And that's a lot easier than forming your own police forces. Because there are a lot of things that go wrong with that.
Oh yeah. Well, and what I meant by making arrest, I mean like crooked politicians
Oh,
who,
we like, okay, yeah, 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 okay.
yeah,
Like,
because they want
or
to,
U.S.
because
Attorney General or FBI, okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's, I
Like
think,
it,
like
like if
Tim
Josh
Walz.
Shapiro's name was on the Epstein list and he's found out to be guilty of a crime, they like many Republican voters and even the Constitution Party voters would agree with Republicans in this. They would want him arrested.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's funny because after Donald Trump, the so much thing were weaponized against him. People say, "Oh, he's a 34 count felon." It's like every one of those felonies, and it's just one crime, and it's one crime based on another crime, and that other crime isn't even defined to up it to a felony. Every one of those 34 convictions, and they haven't actually gone all the way to the process of sentencing. So it isn't officially a conviction, but a 34 count felon just shows that it was weaponized, and it just shows, how sorry they were to change, the way we do the laws, the way we do law enforcement. People think, oh, that would give Trump kind of a permission to be more harsh on his side, but I think this is a political country. So there are actual laws on the books, and there are laws that you can enforce without getting the people to, not vote you back in again, or not vote your colleagues back in again. So I would like to see, some of the people that are obviously, Letitia James, who weaponized the New York Justice Department to say that Donald Trump defrauded a bank by saying Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. Well, frankly, Mar-a-Lago, like the front entrance is worth more than $18 million. But then she actually says, oh, I live in this state. This is my primary home, when the laws of New York tell her she has to live in New York. And then she has a sister or niece living in the house. So she gets a favorable mortgage rate, exactly what she took Trump to jail for. That's one that I think they can pursue and say, this is legitimate mortgage fraud. That's a pretty safe one to go after. But, going after, some others that the whole thing about inciting violence, like Senator Kelly, it's like, I understand how he's telling, what the subtext is, if you're in the military, enlisted or officer, don't listen to anything Donald Trump says. That's the subtext. But what he actually said was, don't obey unlawful orders. So it's kind of a, I believe the intent was to subvert the chain of command, but I'm not so sure, that would work in a court of law.
Mm. And so who? So I gotta remember. Whose spot are you taking if you were to win? Lisa, but
Lisa Biscola. Yeah, Lisa Biscola, who's been there since 1998 after serving, I think, 8 years in the House of Representatives. Yeah, and it's interesting, um, portrays herself as a moderate, but there are very few issues where she doesn't support the Democrat leadership. And just the fact of being a Democrat, means that we have the balance of power going to the Democrat leader, the person in charge is going to be a strong Democrat. The Republican leader is going to be a strong Republican. Just being in that tally gives power to the things that she says she's kind of fighting against. But just by being an elected official in that party gives all those things a lot more power, and a lot more of the levers of government to be put forth and forwarded.
so so if you had to rate her between 1 to 100 on a grading scale, um, what would you grade her? Think like a teacher there, and then give why you would give her that grade, and what changes would you make
Mm-hmm.
yourself?
Well, I don't think it's so much her on a 1 to 100 scale. I think it's a totality of what she does. So, you know,
Sounds
if
like a 0%.
what?
Sounds like a
Yeah,
0%.
yeah. There isn't a whole lot she's accomplished in 28 years, which is kind of wait, it's got to be 28 divided by 4 in 28 years. So and she's received over well, I guess it's about $3 million in salary in all those years because the salary is over 100,000 a year now. So for $3 million, I'd say if she was an investment, I would switch to another company, and I think that's what I'm asking for.
And what would you do differently in her seat?
Well, first of all, I think the state should intercede and make it very difficult for the counties to object and be their own little fiefdoms and say we're not part of the United States government. I really believe that when a person is charged with a crime, when they're in prison, that then trying to say, oh, we're going to give that person a lighter sentence, we're not going to put that person in bail, we're not going to allow that person to be in prison because we're anti-American. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think any county or any state should be anti-American. When I look at our state and I look at what's going on in Minnesota, and people have different opinions. People, because they see the video from a different angle, they hear a different person interpret it. But the fact of the matter is, the real problem in Minnesota is there's organized crime, and Antifa is a international organized terrorist organization that's being welcomed in by their leaders. And the Democrat Party in Northampton and Lehigh County welcomes in Antifa and wants them for political reasons, for political power, wants them to censor Republicans, to censor conservative voices, and to let Antifa run wild. And I think that puts people in danger. So some of those basic differences I think are easy to identify.
Mm. And I know you gotta go in a few.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we spent about 40 minutes, so yeah.
yeah, yeah. So are there any final words you wanna give to your voters?
Well,
Things I may not have the time to ask?
I want to say first of all, thank you. I know I asked to be on your podcast to reach out to your listeners. You have thousands of people who maybe won't listen to this podcast, but follow you and see what you've said and are interested in what you have. And like you say, they're not all Republicans. And if I get every Republican to vote for me and nobody else, I'm losing big time. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk with them. And I also want to invite them to, I got to do it this way, look at scottjanney.com. They go to the video page. That's kind of the issues and the about me page together. You get to hear me say what I think about, what I think the most important issues are. They're Facebook wants me to make 30-second videos. Do a 30-second video on election integrity or on lower taxes or on helping Pennsylvania's economy. You got to just hit the high points. I have 10 of those, and I have 10 stories from my life that explain why. And those are actually, I broke the rules, and a lot of those are a little over 2 minutes. So you have that. You have I link not only my Instagram, Facebook, and X account, I link my LinkedIn account because I have a long professional history of helping people who agree on mission but don't agree on the details get together. As someone who's worked in very large charities, I thought Villanova was complicated. I thought the temple was complicated. Being in a territory of the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army is actually a church. Not like Catholic Charities, it's a charity off to the side that may or may not do what the church wants. It's actually a church within my 12 states, 40,000 members that serves 4 million people every year. So that's 100 to 1 members to who they serve. But there are things that for fundraising were not done well, and there was a lot of inertia from the finance office and legal office and they had reasons to not do the things that I thought would make it better. But I worked with them. I learned their language. I already knew the finance language, and got them to see what we agreed on and how we could move forward. So we're going to be a pretty divided House, Senate, and House. I don't think Pennsylvania is going to be a state anytime where the Republicans or the Democrats are going to have the kind of super majority. They don't have to worry about what the other people say. And that's probably not a good way to govern anyway. So we're going to have to find the things that we agree on, come together, and figure out how to do it so everybody saves face, everybody gets something that they want, but the citizens are heard, and the citizens get the thing that our 80 or 90% of us agree with.
Well, I definitely thank you for coming on, and I definitely want to thank you for asking me to be on this show. You know, it's actually a privilege for me to have you on. And if you ever want to come on again, you just give me a holler, and we'll schedule another night.
I know your phone number.
Yes, you do.
Right.
And please share this video with all your friends, family, and have them share with everyone. And
I have a volunteer meeting in 15 minutes, a Zoom meeting with a lot of my volunteers and they're going to hear about this, and I'm sharing the link. I shared with some of them already, but everybody on the call will get it as well.
Cool. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Scott, for being on. And you all have a great night.
Have a great night, everyone, or a great day if you're watching it tomorrow morning.
True that.